Good morning. My name is Jo Wilson. I am Jean's niece. I was Millie's daughter. Millie Wentz, who lived here for several years. She moved here in the 90s, and then after she was here, Jean came, and then Nell and Vic came. So we told Ricky, and then after Millie and Nell and Vic had passed, Rada, the fourth sister, moved in. So we told Ricky that we should have the prize for the most people who have lived in Butterfield. So I wanted to speak today about my Aunt Jean, but I couldn't say that because she was truly our Aunt Jean. The way that she led her life, every one of us felt like we were her Aunt Jean. We didn't share that she was that person for each one of us. But I wanted to tell you a story. She was a trailblazer. Many times I would ask her to tell me the story how a young woman from Elkins, Arkansas, just out of high school, just right after World War II, had gone to New Orleans. She had found her way there because she was looking for a career. And she knew she needed to get out and do something. She had seen her older siblings do that. So she read the paper. I was like, Jean, how did you find out how to do this? And I said, there was no Google then. She read the paper and saw this ad for the nurse cadets. And she called the number, found out how to do it. She got on the bus by herself, alone, this woman who knew everybody in the town where she lived, and they all looked like we do here. And then she went to New Orleans to Charity Hospital, this huge hospital, by herself. That just totally amazes me every time I hear that story. But she had, like I said, she had seen her other siblings. Her oldest sister was a nurse, and she knew that she needed to get out and do that too. And so she found the career path that led her to a wonderful life. And in the student handbook for the Charity School of Nursing, I found this message, and I thought it was truly Jean. And this is how it reads. To a nurse. To be a nurse is to walk with God along the path that our Master trod, to soothe the achings of human pain, to faithfully serve for little gain, to lovingly do the kindly deed, a cup of water to one in need, a tender hand on a fevered brow, a word of cheer in the living now, to reach the soul through its body's woe. Ah, this is the way that God would go. Oh, white-capped girls in service true, our great physician is working through you. And I thought that truly defined her life. She lived that message. She was always a caregiver. She was the one in the family who was always called on if someone was hurt, if they were sick, or if they needed prayers, if they needed encouragement. We always went to her. I can remember her always visiting my grandmother. My grandmother lived to 103. And the last few years, probably not even 10 years, I don't believe, she lived in a nursing home. But Jean went to see her every day she was in that nursing home. Faithfully, every day she went to see her. So you can think that was a lot of visits. I can also remember her ministering to my mom in illness. And one day my mom, in her retirement years, actually she was living here at the time, she was bowling and she fell and hurt her arm. So she drives over to Jean's house. At that time, Jean was living over close to the university, and she said, Jean, my arm's hurting. And Jean looked at it and she said, well, no wonder it's broken. So she put my mom in the car, drove her to the hospital, and took care of her. And that's typical Jean care. I mean, it was always Jean care. Well, Jean was my lifelong prayer partner. She didn't necessarily talk about her faith, but she lived it. She lived it daily. When we would go to visit her, she would have her Bible right there on the table, and it was falling apart. In fact, I think it's around here somewhere. It was well used, believe me, well used. And she read it daily, and she read those devotionals, and she gave us the upper rooms to read, and she went to every Bible study, I think, that was around here. I know she and Francis went to Bible study fellowship, and just, I think every time a door opened that there was a Bible study, they were there to take part in it. And I think she thought one of her best achievements in that field was she and Francis got to take a trip to the Holy Land. And what a better thing for her to get to do. It was so wonderful that they could go together and enjoy that. But I could always depend on her if I needed some prayers or to help me with some prayers. And one particular one that sticks with me was my daughter. She's my oldest child, and she couldn't be here today, and it was crushing her that she couldn't. She's living in Albuquerque now. But she was getting in her 30s, starting to turn in her 30s, and I thought she needed to be getting married and having some grandchildren. So Jean and I were talking about prayers, and we were saying, we need to just pray that she'll find somebody. Well, after a while, my daughter had been busy going to college. She went to Montana and Washington State to college. Then she served in the Peace Corps in Africa. Then she backpacked up the east coast of Africa for 6 months with a friend. She traveled around the world, mostly by herself. She taught in a middle school in inner city LA after the Rodney King riot. So you can see, she kept us busy praying for her, just praying for her. So then I told Jean, I called her one day, I can still remember where I was when I called her, and I said, Jean, I think we're praying the wrong prayer. So let's pray for some young man to find Stephanie. And she said, okay, so we did, and sure enough, I have the most awesome son-in-law, I cannot tell you all. He is the most wonderful person, and he's perfect for Stephanie. And then they gave us 3 wonderful grandchildren. Some of you have seen those grandchildren because they grew up right here at Butterfield. And they thought that the Butterfield pool was their swimming pool because Jean swam all the time, and she would drag my mother down there quite a bit. And so those grandchildren went with her, and Ro and Beck and Sugina, and Kathy, the nurse, came in when we were ministering with Jean, and she said, how are your grandchildren, Ro and Beck and Sugina? And I'm like, oh my goodness, you can still remember those names. And they've been in Albuquerque a couple of years. So. But Jean could always be found supporting her nieces and nephews. It didn't matter. It wasn't just mine that she did that for. It was like she went to all Jeannie's dance recitals. She went to see Johnny play high school basketball. She went to see Jimmy with his animals at the fair. She went to Josh's soccer matches. Even if it was sleeting and snowing, she was sitting out there, all bundled up to watch him play soccer. And she would travel to Minnesota to see those nieces and nephews and their activities. And she drove to Virginia to the weddings, to Sandy's wedding, and then other, just wherever there was family, she was going to be there and do it. And she made us all feel so important by doing those things, and what a gift that was to us. So we watched how she led her life. And when we were reaching retirement age, I remember asking her, how did you know it was time to retire? Some of you have had that feeling. How did you know? And she said, you'll know. She said, but also, she did give us some good advice. She said, have some volunteer work lined up that you want to do, and something that you've always wanted to do, but you've never gotten to do that. So she took her own advice when she retired, and she volunteered with Planned Parenthood. And I'm sure she helped many young women with reproductive decisions as well as healthy living decisions. And she attended classes at the University of Arkansas. She went in a lot of different fields. She took every class I think she was eligible to take, but mostly she loved the history, the Arkansas history, the U.S. history, the world history. And she delighted in being the oldest one in her class. And she thought it was really neat that she could make A's along with those other students. But then she could also tell the professor some things from real life situations that she had lived through some of that history, which was a neat thing. I'm not sure how she got to be such a Razorback sports fan, but she always lived near campus until she moved out here. And fortunately, well, one of the draws for her was Butterfield had the bus that went to the games. So, but there's no telling how many miles that she walked to go to football games or basketball games. And when they were building Bud Walton Arena, she got so excited because it was 635 steps from her back door. So she would go every day, and those workers that were building that arena got to know her by name. And so then of course she had season tickets. She had season tickets for the girls basketball, the men's basketball, the football. And so we still have those things. But one of her biggest disappointments with the basketball was when the new athletic director decided he was going to put lights on that balcony, and she could no longer take her threes. She had these big signs that said number 3, and when the Razorbacks would score a 3-point shot, she would put a 3 on the wall. So if you're sitting out in the congregation, you could see those 3s coming up and know how many 3s had been made. And Francis was her buddy in doing this, and they had a little bag, and they had all their 3s and all their tape in there, and they carried it to each game. And they were pretty disappointed when it happened that they couldn't put those 3s up anymore. But they didn't let it deter them. As it said nowadays, they persisted. They still went to the games. I think the greatest legacy that Jean has left is stated by the post that my daughter put on Facebook this week, and I'm going to quote what she said. "This is the woman who taught me girls could do anything. An early widow who never remarried, she showed me you don't have to have a man to be a complete woman. Amazingly strong, compassionate, kind, hardworking, had a hotline to God, and would give you the shirt off her back. I will miss you dearly, Aunt Jean. Hogs lost their biggest cheerleader today." And I would have to add to that heaven gained an angel supreme. She was truly an inspiration to many just by living out her faith, and we're all better people for having had her in our lives.